Hi everyone, happy Friday. As you know, I'm not here today, but we are going to go through our law of cosine notes. So if you haven't already, please download the lesson 3.5 law of cosine notes, and make sure you take time today to tell your group one thing you are looking forward to this weekend, because it is Friday. Okay. So we're going to start with the warm-up. So I want you to take a few minutes with your group to just remember law of sines. Our formula for that was sine of angle A is to side A, as sine of angle B is to side B. Sine of angle C is to side C. And remember, we talked about uppercase letters represent angles, lowercase represent sides. So with your group, if you can go through it once you define side AB, okay, so we might call that little c for number one. And then for number two, this says find both possible measures for P. So you want to use your law of sines, find an angle for P, and then see if you can possibly make a second triangle out of the given information. So if you could pause this video and then give students time to work on those two problems, and then press play when they're ready. Okay, so here are answers. For number one, if you are solving for side C, sine of 53 degrees would be proportional to C, as sine of 44 degrees is to 7. You can cross multiply those. Make sure you are in degree mode. We get 8.048. I didn't tell you how to round, so don't worry about that for now, and just really pay attention on your formative on Tuesday as well as the My Math Lab. For number two, sine of 27 is to 18, as sine of P is to 35. In order to solve for a missing angle, after we cross multiply, we're going to need to take the inverse sign. That's going to give us our angle. Again, make sure you are in degree mode. We get 61.977. I did not say how to round, so if you said 62, that's fine. How do we decide if we have a second angle? We talked about during the block day that if we had a second angle, those are supplementary. They add up to 180. So if we subtract from 180, we get 118. And we always need to double check. If I added 118 with 27, could I still have a possible triangle? Yes, because 118 and 27 is still less than 180, so that gives me the possibility to have a second triangle. Okay, we're going to move on today and start looking at law of cosines. For law of sines, we use law of sines when we were given angle, side, angle. So we had two angles in the side in between. Angle, angle, side. So two angles in the side next to it. And then side, side, angle. This was our case that could possibly give us 0, 1, or 2 triangles. When do we use law of cosines? For any other triangle combination. That would be if I give you all sides. Or if I give you two sides with the angle in between. I am going to talk about pairs. For law of sines, we were always given a pair. An angle with a side across from it. An angle with a side across from it. In law of cosines, we do not have a pair. You're welcome to look through this proof here. Again, just like with law of sines, we use law of cosines when we do not have right triangles. So if we were to create a height, we can use proportions of that triangle to figure out missing sides. Our law of sines equation is a squared equals b squared plus c squared. Looks very familiar to Pythagorean theorem. minus 2 times B times C times cosine of A. I want you to notice here, if you are solving for side A or angle A, we use this equation. And what's in between B and C? Okay, so I want you to recognize that B and C are in the middle of the equation if we are solving for either side or angle A. Now you could rewrite this in terms of B, then this would be A squared C squared minus 2 times A times C. Okay, and again, if we're solving for B, that means A and C are in the middle. If we were solving for either side C or angle C, then A and B would be in the middle. Okay, so A and B are in the middle. This is going to make more sense when we actually see a problem here. One thing to know is if I don't tell you what to solve for first, if you have side, 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 so I give you a triangle with all the sides, you have to find the largest angle first. Okay, so just write that note down just in case. Usually we tell you what to solve for, but if by chance it doesn't, if you have 3 sides, you have to solve for the largest angle first. And as we know, the largest angle would be across from the largest side. If you have side angle side, you need to solve for the smallest angle first. Okay, so just 2 things to kind of note there. Okay, all right, here we go. Just like law signs, I'm not going to necessarily draw my triangles to scale. I'm just going to draw triangles. So I have A, B, and C. A, B, C. Little a is 6, little b is 8, and little c is 12. I do not have a pair here. I don't have an angle with a side across from it given. So I cannot use law of signs. This wants us to solve for C. If it wants me to solve for angle C, then I have to start and end my equation with C's. So there is my pair. I'm starting and ending my equation with C. That means in the middle are A and B. So C squared would be 12 squared equals A squared plus B squared, and it doesn't matter which order I go. So I'm taking this equation here, just going to bring it right down, minus 2 times A times B cosine of C, and I don't know angle C. So I have to do a little algebra, and I also have to pay attention to the fact that this is a variable, okay? So that would be no different than if I had an equation. I'm just going to make this up here, like 3 equals 4 plus 5 minus 2 times 10x, right? If I had something like this, if I kind of simplified it a little bit, I can add 4 and 5 together, but I can't add 4 and 5 with that negative 2 and 10 because those are connected to a variable with multiplication. Okay, so just be careful with that. So 12 squared is 144, 36, 64. These are all being multiplied. So I can go ahead and multiply them. Negative 2 times 6 times 8 is negative 96. I can add these two together, which is 100. And again, I cannot combine these two. Okay, again, this is simplified here. If I had, more of like an algebra 1 equation, something like this, If this is connected to a variable, I cannot combine these two. So I can subtract 100. I get 44. I can divide. And then, as we remember from our law of sines, if we need to get rid of cosine, to undo cosine, we need to use the inverse, which makes sense because we are solving for an angle. So I'm going to use cosine inverse 44 over negative 96. So I'm going to go to my calculator, make sure I'm in degree mode. Second cosine 44 divided by negative 96. And we get angle C is 117.3 degrees. It doesn't say what to round to, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, so a little bit of algebra, but the formula looks a little bit longer than law of sines. But once you practice a few times and you see that your pair, whatever you're looking for, in this case was C, your pair starts and ends your equation. Okay, so let's try another one. I'm going to move this up a little bit. Okay. For our next one, here's my triangle. A, B, C. Again, it doesn't matter what order you write that. A is 50 degrees. Little b is 15. Little c is 30. It wants me to solve for A first. So I'm going to go in the order it tells me to find. So I'm going to start with A. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I do not have any pair in this problem, meaning I do not have an angle given with a side across from it. So that means that A has to start and end my equation. So A, cosine of A, well, that's 50 degrees. That also means that our B and C are going to go in the middle. So I have 15 squared plus 30 squared minus 2 times 15 times 30. Well, here's the really, really nice thing about this problem right here. Your variable is already solved for. The only thing that you have is a square, and to get rid of that, we can square root. So I'm going to take second square root, 15 squared plus 30 squared minus 2 times 15 times 30 cosine of 50 degrees. And A must be 23.4. So if you are solving for a side using law of cosines, it's very quick. All you have to do is plug in the information and take the square root. Now it does say, once you have A, to go ahead and solve for angle C. Well, if you know this is 23.4, you can now use law of sines now that you have a pair. 23.4 sine of angle C is 230. So with your group, go ahead and solve for angle C. You can pause the video and let everyone take a minute to do law of sines to solve for angle C. Okay, so we should get 30 times sine of 50 equals 23.4 sine of C. So we're going to have to divide by 23.4. Take the inverse sine of this. So inverse sine, I can do my alpha y equals to make that fraction nicer. Divide by 23.4, and we get 79.1. Okay, so angle C is 79.1. Okay, my last step then would be to find my last angle, which is B. Okay, well, if I know one angle is 50 and the other is 79.1, 180 minus 79.1 minus 50 gives us 50.9 degrees. Okay. All right. I just noticed that the answer key has different orders because it solved it in a different order. So the answer key asks for B first and then C. So if I asked you in that order to solve for B first and then C, you'll get different answers, but you can check that on the answer key. Okay, last one here, and then I'm going to have you guys try some. I'm going to help you kind of label this, and then you can check your answers from here. This question, when you're looking at where to put what angles, is a little confusing. So this is saying a surveyor walks 0.85 miles from point A to point B. So that would be here, and that would be 0.85 miles. And then turns 75 degrees. So here is where they turn 75 degrees. I'm gonna change this maybe to like a, oh, that didn't work. Let's try white. There we go. Nope, that didn't change. Let's try that one more time. Okay, so 75 degrees. That means that if we take 180 minus that, this angle is actually 105. So that kind of changes. After they turn 75 degrees, they walk 1.2 miles. Okay, so you have two sides given here. One side here, one side here. And you have the angle in between, and it wants you to find this, which is little b. Okay, so with your group, you want to set up. What do you think the setup would be trying to find angle B? Go ahead, pause the video, see what your setup would be. Okay, so if we're solving for B, we're going to start and end our equation with B. That means in the middle are my other two sides, 1.2 squared, 0.85 squared, minus 2 times 1.2 times 0.85 times cosine of 105. This one's really nice because all I have to do is take the square root. Okay, so go ahead, plug that in and see what you get for B. I'm going to scroll down to my answer here. And here's what I was talking about, that these were actually done in a different order, but that's okay. Okay. So here you go. Check your answer, but try plugging that in. Make sure you have a chance to try plugging that in. What I would like you guys to do now is try problems 4 and 5 with your group. One is solving for an angle. One is solving for a side. When you solve for an angle, it's going to be a little bit more algebra. Solving for a side is really nice because all you have to do is take the square root. Once your group has tried problems 4 and 5 and you check the answer key, you feel comfortable with them, go ahead and work on your My Math Lab. You are able to finish your whole My Math Lab at this point. On Monday, we will go through and practice both law of sines and law of cosines. Our formative is Tuesday in class. We will spend the first 15 minutes or so practicing before we take our formative. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Let me know if you have any questions.